Still be here. And so now it's time to talk about the offensive line. From ESPN's Brady Henderson, Geno Smith faced pressure on about 47% of dropbacks Sunday. That was the third highest rate in Week 7 and would be second highest as a season-long average, but he was only sacked once, in large part because of plays like this where he maneuvered the pocket to find room to throw, and then he attaches a video of great pocket movement from Geno. So I thought we'd talk about two things. Number one, what we made of the offensive line, because there was a brand new starter on there with rookie Michael Jarrell filling in for Stone Forsythe. Seahawks down to their fourth string right tackle. So let's talk about what we thought overall. And then I also wanted to talk about the fact that the offensive line still did allow a ton of pressure and that Geno Smith does get some credit for being able to outmaneuver.
You ready for this?
Yes.
Seahawks offense. It's like my golf game, Stace.
Oh, my God.
Ready? So it's like my offense because off the tee, I can go anywhere, Stacy. I will snap hook the drive. I will push it to the right. But then every now and then, boom, I connect, and it's 280 down the middle. Bam, that's the offensive line. Every now and then it will connect. All right, now the short game, right? 150 yards in, that's Geno, right? That's Geno. That's the part of the game that's going to set everything else up after your crazy snap hook or whatever happens. And Geno consistently gets the ball on the green. So that whether that's avoiding pressure, getting the ball to his receivers, that's what he's good at. Consistently gets it on there. And then we've seen that the Seahawks red zone offense has been pretty good this year. Bam, that's putting, right? So, like, break it down for you. You're a Golden Tee specialist now, so you know what I'm talking about.
I'm like a Golden Tee expert.
Yeah,
I sank a 45-foot putt the other day.
Did you?
It was a record on that machine.
Hold on. Did the story go from 80 to 45?
No,
or
no,
you
no,
still sung both of those?
I sung both of those. And Derek would tell you I'm the best Golden Tee putter he's ever seen.
Okay. So
I have a gift.
I believe in you. That's Geno. Geno makes up for a lot of what goes wrong on that offensive line. And yes, he's still got some pressure. And yes, you took advantage of a defensive line that hasn't been able to get after the quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons were sending blitz here, there, everywhere. And Geno did a good job throwing into the blitz and avoiding. If you look at Geno's 2 touchdown passes, you got one to Ken Walker out the backfield. You got one to DK down the middle of the field before the second half. The one to DK, he slides in the pocket, steps up, boom, lets it go. The one to Ken Walker, Michael Jarrell completely misses the block, boom, he avoids to his left, steps up, and throws. Like, those are the things that Geno does to make up for this offensive line. That's why it's even more special when you observe what he is doing. You cannot continue to live this way.
No.
That is why, Stacy, I will shoot a 91 one day and shoot a 78 the other day, because the part that you do the most in golf, which is drive off the box, I can go anywhere. That's what the offensive line. The part that needs to be the most consistent, that is involved in every single play, just isn't consistent enough.
Wow, it worked.
So you like that, right?
I get it.
I brought it all together for you.
Yeah.
So it's impressive to see what Geno is doing, but you also look at the rest of your schedule and you say, can you continue to live like this?
Because you were facing the worst pass rush in football. A pass rush that's been the worst pass rush in football in 2 of the last 3 years. They only had 5 sacks entering this game. That you allowed one. Both you and I said, like, okay, cool. That you allowed Geno Smith to be the 3rd highest pressured quarterback in football that week is not good. Like, that is not a good thing. And again, there's a caveat to all of this. You're down to your 4th string right tackle. You are switching out between Anthony Bradford, who's a second-year player, and a rookie at right guard. So I get it, right? I get it. There are personnel issues that you have on your offensive line. To Bump's point, you look at Ken Walker. You look at Geno having a great year. You look at the receiving weapons and money that you have sunk into receiver, and you go, what are you doing? You're running out of excuses not to improve this offensive line, and if they can't perform consistently, are you going to make a midseason trade? Like, what are you going to do to help this? Because you have too much money and talent sunk into your skill position players to roll out an offensive line that's going to allow your quarterback to be pressured that often.
This sounds familiar. Maybe there's an evaluation flaw in the way these guys are evaluating the offensive linemen and the guys they bring over. They drafted several this year, right? You got Christian Haynes, you got LaMayu as well, and then we saw Michael Jarrell, who was drafted in the 7th out of Division II football, who looks like he might be fighting for this starting job this week. We'll see how this thing works out, how the coaches grade him, but I think he did enough to be in the conversation. So if you continue to have the same struggles, right? And the common denominator is that you have the same GM, maybe you have some of the same scouts. Maybe there is a flaw in the evaluation of the offensive line the same way the Mariners have a flaw in evaluating hitters and bringing them over here. So something's got to change, because when it comes to yards, you got the number 2 receiver in the NFL right now. Despite his drops, despite the fumbles that he had in back-to-back games, DK's 568 is good enough for second in the NFL right now. We're looking at Ken Walker. We heard Tucker, his name, sorry?
Ross Tucker.
Ross Tucker talk about K9 and his explosiveness. Athletically, I think he's better than Jordan Mason. I think he can hang with Hubbard over there in Carolina, and those guys are our top 5 running backs in the game. If you can get this offensive line fixed, you could win this division at this point.
Yeah.
If the defense can be stout against the run and cause these turnovers, if you can get this offensive line fixed, you can compete for this division. The Niners just dropped one. They're under 500. You are by yourself in the division at the number 1 spot. So the longer we get into the season and the more we see some of the same issues, the more concerned I get. But man, you can never complain about a win.
Atlanta's considered a good to great line and gave up 55% pressure. So how much is that line worth dumping into? I think there's a huge difference, though, between those two things. I also don't know that I'd consider Atlanta's offensive line a great offensive line. You have draft capital invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's like a huge strength of the team. I think it's clearly, like Seattle, ironically, their skill position players is where they have the most capital and money invested.
Yeah, well, they've done a decent job protecting Cousins. He's been sacked 13 times. The highest in the league right now was Deshaun Watson at 33, and then you have some guys at 4. Lamar Jackson only 7 times, but we all know he got some feet. So,
yep, his own evasiveness.
That's going to help.
Also helping. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you other than you're looking at the full picture of the Seahawks offensive line. They, like Bump said, have allowed the 4th most sacks in all of football. With now 20 for Geno. They have... You watch them play and you can see a talent gap. You have Stone Forsythe allowing the most pressure of any tackle in football, of any offensive line in football, and by like 10 plus more than the next closest guy. Part of that's because Stone Forsythe probably shouldn't be out there as much. And that's not to disrespect Stone, and I don't mean that in a personal way at all. We've talked to him. He's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
But he's a 3rd string guy who should be in there in like relief of a guy who gets hurt and then the starter comes back in. Like, this isn't the guy that you drafted to be rolling out there every single snap.
Yeah. He's in a tough spot. I mean, he's good enough to be in the league for sure. You got to find the right combinations, and I think they need to explore this Michael Durrell situation. 1 game in, he is a rookie. He did have his mistakes. He got beat off the ball several times, but there are also times where you see him dominate, and you say, "Oh, there it is. I see why they like the 7th rounder out of Findlay."
All right. Well, there were a lot of really awesome.